Hello, people. We have a very important. Welcome to our special Passover, the Pesach edition. We have a very important article for you today from the Hamodia Weekly Magazine, February 2nd of 2011, 28th of Shabbat, 5,771. February 2nd, 2011. It's about Stones of Remembrance, Jewish Cemeteries in Poland, by Gabriel Horan. Let's start reading right now. Poland's Jewish cemeteries are in a state of great disrepair, and finding manpower within its tiny Jewish population to restore them is virtually impossible. Fortunately, Hashem means God. Hashem can send help from the most unlikely places. Polish prison inmates have been drafted to preserve an integral part of Poland's past, its Jewish heritage, and at the same time ensure its future remembrance. A unique challenge. As waves of anti-Semitism spread across Europe once again, educating Europeans, especially in Poland, about the past may be the best way to ensure a positive future. On the eve of World War II, Poland was home to around 3.5 million Jews, 10% of the country's population, and Europe's largest Jewish community. Half of the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis were Polish, and only 280,000 Polish Jews survived the war. The centuries-old Jewish presence in Poland was left in ruins. Today, Poland has 9 Jewish communities with a total of 4,000 members. In stark contrast, Poland contains over 1,200 Jewish cemeteries and 200 shuls that survived both the Holocaust and the communist regime. Shuls means a synagogue, the majority of which are in rampant disrepair. So we can say that again. In stark contrast, Poland contains over 1,200 Jewish cemeteries and 200 shuls that survived both the Holocaust and the communist regime, the majority of which are in rampant disrepair. Monika Krauchik, an attorney and a member of the Jewish community of Warsaw, is the CEO of the Foundation for the Preservation of Jewish Heritage in Poland, FODZ. That's the Foundation for the Preservation of Jewish Heritage in Poland. The foundation is committed to preserving the rich heritage of the past for the sake of future generations. In the year 2000, Ms. Krauchik began her legal career by using pre-war documents to help the Jewish community reclaim Jewish properties that had been confiscated by the Nazis during the war. 10 years later, these court cases are still being litigated. Quote, the FODZ is a super community, she explained to Hamodia, but not of people, since we only deal with cemeteries and historical sites. How can we neglect the cemeteries where millions of Jews were buried? We owe them respect and gratitude since they were the builders of the civilization we enjoy today. Many towns in Poland that had a Jewish majority before the war now have no Jewish population whatsoever, and no form of commemoration of former residents. Most Polish citizens aren't even aware of the rich Jewish history of their towns. To help rectify this, the FODZ, that's the Federation for the Preservation of Jewish Heritage in Poland. To help rectify this, the FODZ launched an educational program called, quote, To Bring Memory Back, unquote, which encourages young people to investigate the Jewish history of their region and to present their discoveries to the wider public. Since 2005, the program has been implemented in over 300 Polish schools and community centers. and community centers, with more than 7,000 students participating. Voluntary upkeep of the local cemeteries is an integral part of the project. Quote, since there are so few in the Polish Jewish community, we need to find creative ways to attract the attention of other groups regarding our problems, Ms. Krautchik said. The FODZ often receives valuable support from rabbis and leaders in Israel, the United States, and the European Union for its restoration projects. The problem, however, is that with so little manpower and so many cemeteries and historical sites to repair, it is fighting a losing battle. Without the help of a great many volunteers, in numbers greater than the entire Jewish population in Poland, hope of restoration is slim. Help from prisoners. Fortunately, Hashem, that's God, fortunately, Hashem sends help from the most unlikely places. In this case, it came from Polish prison inmates. 5 years ago, in the town of Hajnówka in eastern Poland, Arthur Siruk, the director of education for the Polish prison service, came up with a novel idea. Why not have prisoners clean up Jewish cemeteries? When Ms. Krautchik heard this suggestion, she contacted Polish Chief Rabbi Michael Shudrich and the Polish Rabbinical Commission on Cemeteries, which he directs, and asked them to supervise all the halachic issues involved to ensure that the work would be done al pi din. Al pi din means according to the Jewish law, according to the dictates of the Jewish law. The program was launched with inmates of the Hajnówka prison, and it was a success. Prisoners completely repaired the overgrown Jewish cemetery in Hajnówka. Word of the program spread quickly, and when Israeli prison service officials heard about the project at an international law enforcement conference, they proposed to their Polish counterparts the idea of turning the Hajnówka initiative into a nationwide project. Chaim Shmulevich, former Israeli prison service legal advisor and a Polish-speaking Israeli, was appointed the Israeli contact person. The Israeli prison authority authorized a mandatory workday for all Israeli prison guard recruits on their annual trip to the Auschwitz concentration camp to work alongside Polish prison officials supervising the prisoners who repair Jewish cemeteries in Poland. The initiative is now officially known as the Tikkun Restoration Project, and the Central Prison Authority of Poland has made it a standard voluntary part of the rehabilitation process. To date, 52 of Poland's 85 prisons have registered to participate in the program, and hundreds of prisoners have been working to repair and maintain Poland's Jewish cemeteries. Prisoners are given a booklet about Jewish history, culture, and religion to educate them about the monumental importance of what they are doing. What promoted Arthur Siruk, an observant Catholic, to spearhead this project? Quote, he just felt that it was the right thing to do. Unquote, Rabbi Shudrich said. Quote, there are such people in the world, not enough of them, but they exist. Quote, why I did it is one of the most difficult questions one might ask, Mr. Siruk explained. Quote, to me, it seems pretty strange that people do not do things like cleaning Jewish cemeteries naturally. It should be a normal part of social life. It is our duty to preserve the remains of the past for the generations to come. Quote, memory is something we owe the Jewish inhabitants of our towns. If we do not preserve their memory, no one else will. A few dozen years from now, the last traces of Jewish presence will disappear from former shtetl. Shtetl are the old Jewish towns. to remain in museums alone. And who visits the museums? Stetlas means the old-time Jewish neighborhoods. They were called the Stetlas. A monument to the past. Israeli and Polish officials recently gathered in the newly renovated cemetery at Radom, 16 miles south of Warsaw. To mark the occasion, they unveiled a huge monument commemorating the city's Jews, built by Polish prisoners. The event was attended by the Polish Justice Minister, municipal officials, Israeli prison service representatives, a group of donors, and Israel's ambassador to Poland, Tzvi Rav Ner. The monument was built using old Jewish tombstones that had been stolen from the cemetery by a Polish tombstone maker during the German occupation. He stole 70 of the most elaborate headstones with the intention of selling them after the war. But the communists forbade citizens to hold on to historical items, and he was unable to find any buyers. The stones remained hidden in his warehouse, untouched for decades. The remaining stones from the Radom cemetery had a harsher fate. They were taken by the Nazis to build a runway for fighter jets and to pave a road to the airport. In the end, the stolen stones were the only gravestones from the cemetery to survive. Years later, they were discovered by the chairman of the Association of Polish Jews in Israel, in the possession of the tombstone maker's heirs. The mayor of Radom confiscated them for display in a museum, but when the municipality was unable to provide funding, they were put in storage again, until the organizers of Tikkun Restoration came up with the idea of turning them into a monument. Quote, "I like this work because we are building something new, which will stand forever," unquote. One participant inmate said, quote, "It gives us hope." Quote, "Participants in the project learn tolerance and also become familiar with the history of Polish Jews who were living on Polish soil for centuries." Project creator Mr. Sirik said, quote, "As the project goes on, it becomes clear that interest is rising. In my opinion, it is clear evidence that Jewish history was not discussed enough in Poland. During the course of the Tikkun education program, Rabbi Shudrich and the heads of many Jewish organizations speak to the inmates about Jewish history and culture. Once, long after the prisoners heard these lectures, a representative of the Social Help Center came to ask them what kind of educational activities they would like to have in the future. The inmates had one unanimous request. Quote, "When will the Jews come back to give us more of these fascinating lectures?" So that's their unanimous request. When will the Jews come back to give us more of these fascinating lectures? The program's purpose. Quote, "The program is not about restoring the past. It's about Kavod HaMetim, that's honor of the dead, which is a fundamental obligation incumbent on every Jew." Rabbi Shudrich said, quote, "Secondly, we are saving more Jewish cemeteries and getting the Polish government more involved. Finally, we are sensitizing a part of the population that might normally have anti-Semitic tendencies. It can really begin to help them change the stereotypes they may have. There is hope. If every lecture changed one person, that is a tremendous thing." A prisoner born in Nauru volunteered to clean up a Jewish cemetery in his hometown. He later admitted that when he was a teenager, he used to come to that cemetery with his friends to get drunk. Quote, "Now that I know what kind of place it is and I learned about the Jewish tradition behind it, I would never do such thing. I would never do such things," he said. Quote, "The future is certainly important," Ms. Kravchik commented. Quote, but there is no other nation in the world that knows about the significance of the past like the Jews. If the past is not important, why do we study the traditions? If the past is not important, why do we study the traditions and history of our ancient rabbis? One Polish author wrote, quote, we do not know the future, we cannot control the present day. So in effect, only the past depends on us. Unquote. What we do for our holy tradition today effectively shapes our future. Quote, 3 generations after the Holocaust, we must try to build as many good relationships as we can with the Polish people to combat the growing anti-Semitism that is sweeping through Europe. We need to use this window of opportunity to make as many friends as possible for Israel and the Jewish people. It's important for us that when the rehabilitated prisoners go back to their neighborhoods, they will be more sensitive to Jewish history and the Jewish people. They may also be able to influence their friends not to destroy graves. Quote, hate crimes come from fear of the unknown. Education changes that. You can say that again. Quote, hate crimes comes from fear of the unknown. Education changes that. So that's that article here. We have a couple of illustrations here. This is full view of a memorial wall in Radom. This is the monument they made with those tombstones that they recovered. There were about 70 tombstones. They made a monument in the cemetery of Radom. Let's see what else. Here we have. This here is a gathering. They're having a ceremony here. Representatives of the Polish government and Israeli delegations place memorial candles at the monument to honor the murdered Jews of Radom. They're putting candles there, memorial candles at the monument to honor the murdered Jews of Radom. Here's the chief rabbi of Poland, Rabbi Shudrish, leads prayers. He's leading the prayers. At left is Stanislav Chmielewski, Secretary of State at the Polish Ministry of Justice. Here, this is Stanislav Chmielewski, Secretary of State of the Polish Ministry of Justice. And this is Rabbi Michael Shudrish. He's leading the prayer ceremony. Here we go. This is Jewish Stones of Remembrance, Jewish Cemeteries in Poland. So that's a very important thing that they're doing, that they're getting the help of the Polish prisoners in Poland. They're doing a very great job and helping to restore the many, there are about 1,200 Jewish cemeteries in Poland. Okay, thank you very much, and we hope to see you again. Have a happy Pesach. Have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach.